Very well, thank you for joining us yet again. You're watching Smart 24 TV with me, Rita Cabanero, and this is SMB. Smart means business. On a day like this, we handle public concerns ranging from social, economic, and political concerns that arise from the public. Now, earlier last week, it is alleged or reported that Uganda withdrew from the International Coffee Agreement or Treaty. And this is where we're going to drive our discussion with an economist to analyze and also let us know the implication of all this that has got to do with it. Joining me now is Fred Muhumuza, who is a lecturer at Makerere University, but also an economist to discuss with us more on this particular matter. What could be the economics implication of Uganda withdrawing from, the International Coffee Treaty or Agreement?
Yeah, thank you, Rita, and good morning, our viewers. This morning, it's a pleasure to be here. I don't know whether it was a smart decision now that this is smart TV. There are certain things that you want to negotiate while you are part of the club. And there are certain things that such kind of organizations can resolve and cannot resolve for us. The little I have read about the reasons for withdrawal, you find some things the ICO, the International Coffee Organization, could not do. And whether we come out or we remain in, we certainly don't think we'll achieve those very soon. The good thing is our coffee is really prime coffee, and the countries that it goes to will still continue to buy our coffee, with or without this arrangement. Okay. Looking through the records, the bulk of our coffee goes to Italy. The other coffee goes to Germany. We also sell coffee to countries like Egypt, Morocco, Algeria, Kenya, surprisingly South Africa. They all buy our coffee. And they know why they do that, because coffee sometimes is branding and you have a culture. That's the coffee you like. So whether with or without the International Coffee Organization, my belief is the coffee will still go through. Okay. So that's the main, so the economics should not be so much dented. Okay. But I think the strategy is what we need to refine and say, what do we want to achieve out of coffee and how do we achieve it? Now there are so many things we could still have achieved by remaining within the ICO. And which, whether we leave or we don't leave, now I'm even beginning to hear information that we actually didn't leave. We are negotiating, so I don't know where we are exactly. But the good thing, message to the farmer, the coffee will continue to go. Yes. Okay, so should there any worry from the farmers? The farmers should not worry. The coffee will still go. The price, I don't know. Coffee prices are not easy to determine. Okay. They are a question of demand, they are a question of supply. But there are also many other things that people need to consider, that in such markets, there's what in economics we call a price taker. Uganda may brag around and say, I sell so many millions bags of coffee per year. I'm the second or third or fourth largest in Africa. You can say so many things for yourselves. But who actually controls the coffee market? You will find it's more on the consumers than the producers. So you would trace and find Germany is the largest exporter of coffee. How does Germany export coffee? Because it's a middleman in between there. You produce the coffee, and then Germany has invested heavily, and the rest of the countries we're talking about here, in between us and the real consumer of the coffee. Because the real consumer of coffee, as we already said, they take brands. They are not taking coffee. They're taking Starbucks. They're taking Italian something, like the wines.
So you're saying the real consumer takes a finished product. The cup of coffee. Yes. Is that what we are talking about here?
Yeah, that cup of coffee. Okay. Somebody, when you get to a restaurant, I want a cappuccino. You're not actually saying, I want coffee, whether from Uganda or Rwanda, I want a cappuccino now. The guy who knows how he makes the cappuccino a cappuccino might actually be blending Ugandan coffee, Rwandan coffee, Italian coffee, Colombian coffee, and all sorts of things to get that cappuccino. Now, that's what consumers take. Now, they have a control over the consumers, which we possibly may not be able to break as the producers. But we can negotiate to say how much of this game can we win. But don't think you will bulldoze the coffee market at the global level when you are a small country like Uganda.
And as, like you say, as a small country, according to you, but we are the first to allegedly withdraw from this treaty or agreement among the African countries, does it come with any coincidences or consequences?
Yeah, as we've said, it depends on what is the role of the ICO in the coffee market. It's really one of the major global federations of this nature has been the oil exporting petroleum countries, OPEC. They were able to control supply in order to manage the price. And when they manage the price, they are managing the barrel price, which goes directly to the producers. But because they as producers manage that market, not the consumers. The consumers in this case have a weaker end. Now in the coffee value chain, you'll find the producer, the people who produce the coffee are too poor that they cannot say, this year we are not going to sell coffee until the price has improved. The moment it is ready, they even sell it when it is still green, not yet ready. Some people are even selling their coffee before it is even ready. They say, you give me the money. When my coffee is ready, you will harvest it yourself. Now already you can see a very disempowered group of producers. And they may not have that clout of managing what price do we get at the global level. So Uganda needs to look into that position and say, okay, how do we remain within the ICO? And when we remain there, how do we therefore organize, not to gang up and bulldoze, but actually negotiate with the other actors in the sector to present our case. And you can present a very good case and say, you guys, look here. These are the farmers who grow the coffee. They are getting this small portion of the value of the coffee. It's not good for humanity. So you can invoke all sorts of things, human rights, all sorts of other democratic things. Say you German and Italy, sure. You don't want a Ugandan to do this. And moreover, when Ugandans' household incomes increase, they might buy your manufactured products. So it's not a lose-lose. It's a win-win to allow more to go to these entities. Can we do some roasting and processing of the primary products here in Uganda rather than doing all of it? Because there you benefit from the technology, the research they are done. So you need to look at the entire value chain as partners, not as rivals. So
and
I think that's
there are also now reports coming in currently that the minister is highlighting that we're actually still in, we are not fully withdrawn. Like I said earlier, these are allegations.
Yes.
So in a case in point like that, as an economist, what is that criteria that should always be followed if a country or our economy has joined an international organization? What should always be there to look out for, even when we are to pull out? What should be the drive for our pull-off or our withdrawal?
I think when you join such organizations, you are really trying to invoke the slogan of safety in numbers.
Okay.
But also you're trying to bring in things like economies of scale and what we call transaction costs. You don't want to keep negotiating certain things. You go to Germany, you negotiate. Colombia goes there, negotiates. Brazil goes there, negotiates. On the same thing. As I've said, these are the off-takers of the coffee. Globally, the producers of the coffee, we do not put it on the table of those who drink it. In between us is somebody. And so we want to have
a middleman.
There are those middle men or women or actors, and they're very strong. They're very strong. And they know very well that for them, they can stock and bulk and tell you we're not buying coffee next quarter. Because they can do that. For you, as I've said, the moment your coffee is flowers, you begin to take dates and credits and show people that I have coffee. And you're only going to sell 3 bags, 10 bags, 20 bags. So you're already in a very precarious position that you want to join this group, which group may have even the buyers, so that you can have a room for conversation. So what do you bring on that table is really a win-win for the sector. You want to show them we are in this sector. Can you do part of the research? Because if our coffee is bad, you are the ones to feed it. But if you do research and improve the production level, you too will benefit and the consumers. So let's join and see how Germany can invest in Kituza, where we do a lot of our coffee research. Can they send in money here and we train agriculturalists? Can they send money here and we support the extension staff for coffee and other crops so that these households come through? Because we are all win-win. That's what you want to take on that table. And I think that should be the negotiation. Now, pulling out, I don't know what you achieve. You may think you're achieving something. It may be a political statement, but certainly business-wise, you're not going to gain so much.
Okay, and we're talking about middlemen or middle women, like we said earlier.
Yep.
Maybe you could enlighten us more. In case the country does not have a middleman there, what is the benefit that comes with that? How much can we tap from the international trade?
You know, business, as we call them now, they are value chains. You have where to start and where to end. It's like football. There are those strikers which everybody will be crowding and saying, give them the golden boot because they scored more goals. But there's somebody who gives them the ball. And that is his role. This guy is not judged, his performance is not on the basis of goals scored, but rather assists. There is also a goalkeeper. Once in a while he scores 1 goal in 10 years, or possibly 3 in his lifetime. But that is his role. So in a value chain, you have to say, what exactly is my part? And now that begins to contextualize and say, the middlemen or women have a role to play. And they are actually necessary and required. Because they do a lot of research, forward and backwards. I always compare some of these things when I hear we need to add value. And I'm like, look, would you eat an omelette that has been made on the farmer's farm? An omelette must be made right at the hotel. But you're going to find that an egg is 500 shillings maximum. But an omelette is going to be 10,000. And it's just 2 eggs. So a farmer can come to Serena Hotel and complain and say, you guys, you're cheating us. I'm going to do my own omelettes and bring them. And sell them to who? So it's a value chain, it's not even a middle person. There are different people playing their different roles now. Some have more power because of the investments they have done, the role they play, and you want to negotiate how do we distribute that power. There is a good example you can compare of cocoa, which is a related crop. Cocoa, I think Cote d'Ivoire, since they shifted into that, in 2019 they were able to raise about almost $4 billion out of coffee exports. And Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana are the world's global suppliers. But that is only 6% of the global value of cocoa. But remember, it is $4 billion. Uganda is still getting from coffee $500 million. So shouldn't we actually be shifting to cocoa? And so let's also promote cocoa. But remember, the conversation Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire are having with their global partners is not to say, I am pulling out, I am not doing this. They are saying, you guys, we are getting 6% of the global value. But 6% is 4 billion for one country. So already they have something sizable. But now they are going into that negotiation. How do we increase the value so that we too who are in the upstream of the production can begin to benefit from this crop, not just you. Those are the conversations you want to have with these other fellows rather than saying, middlemen or middlewomen get lost. No, you won't say it because you don't know who takes the cappuccino. Where does Uganda find the cappuccino takers?
And also that one has, I'm learning that it has got also to do on how we conduct ourselves, or how do we conduct ourselves after we have gotten a platform for trade. And this is where maybe if you could share your opinion whether this matters, because there are also reports that the Uganda coffee boss was held on spot over the 1.3 billion shilling that is believed to have swindled that money. Of course, it's an allegation. And in an issue like that, what do you have to say on the way we conduct ourselves, or when it comes to breaking deals for our country?
Of course, the moment you raise something as big as this, people are going to attack you from all corners. As they say, if you're living in a glass house, please don't throw stones. So there will be so many allegations, because now he has excited some people positively, excited some people negatively. So people will raise all sorts of allegations. Soon you'll hear he's not a Ugandan citizen. Soon you'll hear when he went to primary he failed. Soon there will be allegations, and many are going to be thrown out at everybody and anybody. Contracts where who is officially supposed to be there, who is not supposed to be there. There's so many things that are going to go, but I think those should not divert the conversation, because they don't help the coffee farmer. There are good governance issues, there are good institutional issues to see if there is any fault in the institution, it should be cleaned up. But they should not divert us from the conversation we really want to have about the coffee farmer. And what are the major problems of the coffee farmer? I've been reading, and I've been around for some time reading economics with interest. What benefited the coffee farmers when we liberalized the coffee trade and removed the coffee marketing board and allowed many other people to act? One, coffee farmers began to be paid on time. You sell your coffee this week, you get your money this week. Whereas it went was coffee marketing board, you would sell in January and you get your money possibly in April or June. It would take time. But also, records show that coffee farmers were getting 30% of the international price. After liberalization, they began to get 70%.
Is that on an individual coffee farmer?
That's an individual coffee farmer. So if the international price was $1, and by then it was around $1, so people were getting 30% of the $1. But after liberalization, they began to get 70% of the dollar, because now the competition had come through, and the people trying to export the coffee and process it were now competing for it and giving the farm a better price. So we shouldn't just forget that there are issues to resolve within the domestic market in Uganda, much as we also have issues at the international market. Okay. And those are issues I think that the Coffee Development Authority needs to be delving into, and as a regulator, as a promoter of the sector, to make sure the farmer is not being cheated by the middle people we talked about. Let everybody get their share. But those are institutional issues, those are price issues which we need to resolve. We're also having conversations outside the coffee sector about a very strong shilling. It's cheating the farmer.
Okay, and there we go into the discussion of the performance of the Uganda's agricultural producers on the international market. How are we doing? Where can we improve?
I think again it's standards and regulations. We always boast, rightly so, that our neighbors buy a lot of our food.
Is it about boasting? You have said it so far, this is the third time.
Yeah, we always boast. We say, well, we are the food basket of the region, which is sometimes true. Okay. A lot of our food is going to the DRC, is going to South Sudan, is going to Kenya. Actually, when you look through who are our biggest destinations of our export products, besides the Middle East, where we're sending human beings and gold, Kenya, South Sudan, and DRC are countries we should not be ignoring. Now, and what are they buying mostly from us? It is food. So our agricultural produce is doing well. But the danger that we are having is standards. We had Kenya refusing our maize because of aflatoxin. Now, we were just lucky, and luck doesn't last that long, that they were too hungry and nobody was minding about standards. So the way we eat our maize with aflatoxin is the way our neighbors were eating it. But our neighbors are beginning to question. And we shouldn't just be doing this for our neighbors. We should also be doing it for ourselves. A lot of our maize is not even worth to be animal feeds, leave alone human feeds.
Worth to be animal feeds?
It shouldn't even be fed to animals. The levels of aflatoxin are too high. Now, if they can be too high for the animals, what about us? But because we live in informality, a potato falls down and people will make a joke of it and say the bacteria were not aware, pick it and eat it. You cannot deal with global markets in that way. So we need to do regulations, we need to do standards, we need to improve all those kinds of things in order to benefit from the things we export. Ugandan fish, one of the best in the world, if not the best in the world. It grows naturally and all sorts of things. And we have a shortfall of supply. The people who need Ugandan fish out there are more than we can ever meet. Now, here we are as a country, as I've said, we're supposed to be producing enough rice, but we're importing a lot of rice. We are importing a lot of cooking oil, yet we have sunflower, or at least potential to produce sunflower, simsim, and other oil seeds. Why are we importing simsim or cooking oil worth over $200 million when we can't produce it here? But also, you know that a lot of maize milling, oil milling seeds in northern Uganda are idle. They are not getting the supply, meaning the farmers have stopped the production. And why have the farmers stopped the production? Because it is cheaper to import the cooking oil and then package and process it here than picking it from the farmers. Now, how do we resolve some of those issues so that we can reverse this import into an export?
Yes, speaking about our policy, do you think the information, the sensitive information has reached the public very well and effectively towards on how we can produce, especially farmers? I may not know as a farmer the impact of an aflatoxin. I'm thinking I'm adding value, I'm thinking I'm producing quality. Do you think this is all happening very well? Whom are you even pinning it to, and what should be done?
I think government is trying to address issues of institutional nature that have caused these kinds of things. The parish development model, most people are just thinking about financial inclusion. When is the money coming? But I think the parish development model also has pillar one, which is about production, processing, and value addition. But it also has pillar 7, those extreme pillars. Pillar 7 is about public administration and governance. Now, public administration is including the people who are supposed to work with the farmers, extension staff, the health workers, the teachers, Those fellow people who move around, the village health teams, because they are missing, the farmer does not even know how should I dry my maize. And this is the process where aflatoxin begin to come in. You are drying it under humid conditions, too hot, too cold, because the farmer does not control the weather. You just put your maize out there. The rain will be neat. Even by the time you harvest it, some people will leave it and say, after all, it is in its shells, it is covered. By the time I pick it. Now, who is going to help these farmers to say, this is how you should dry your maize, this is the equipment you need, so that even the money we are giving them under Pillar 3, the financial inclusion pillar, it will directly be speaking to the needs of the investments that farmers need to do in order to meet the international standards. But sometimes you just give farmers money and they don't know what to do with it. They drink it, or they just buy inputs, which is adulterated. It fails to produce the quality they need, the volumes they needed. Who is going to make sure the money is speaking to the investment? Unfortunately, in Uganda, we front money ahead of the investment plan. Money should finance your investment plan. Now, farmers should make their investment plan jointly with the extension staff, who will be telling them, you want to do cabbages, these are the things you need to do. You want to do rabbits, these are the things you want to do. So by the time you go to look for the money, you will already be knowing where your money is going. We are even saying some farmers should not even get the money. Just send them a voucher, deposit the money on the person to provide them with what they need. Because this farmer actually needs, how do I dry my maize? How do I store my maize? Now, he needs money to buy that equipment, but there's somebody in that locality or far away who actually does that kind of storage facility. So send the farmer's money to that person and then tell the other person, farmer so-and-so is going to get a voucher, a code, which will come, and the code guarantees them some 2 million. Please provide them with this service. Now, those are the nitty-gritties of saying we need a holistic approach, not just money, not just a road here, an electricity line here, a school here. Farmers eat katogo.
Yeah, you're reminding me when we talked about storage and the temperature, you remind me when I'm purchasing maybe a syrup or even a medicine, and they tell me it's written store under 30 degrees.
How do you
I don't even know that.
You don't know what 30 degrees means? Thank God most drugs are just like room temperature. So keep it out of reach of children, room temperature. And that's why some of the vaccines, we failed to use them. The very, very fast vaccines for COVID. Store them under minus 74 degrees. Who can handle that in these tropical regions? Thank God the other vaccines came and saved the day.
At some point, I don't even know what a 70 temperature is going to be, you know, having. But away from that, how can we make sure we compete favorably around the agro-producers market, the international market? How can we do it better? What is it that Kenya is doing so that we compete with it better? Because our maize is coming back, is being bounced back. It's the 3rd time now. I mean, how can we improve?
Actually, I found some very interesting thing. You know, in school we used to do relays. You run and you hand off a stick to the next one. Now, we would all know the weak person and we would know the strong one. So the strong one would come after the weak one. But the strong one would not do 400 meters. He would take a step back and pick the baton from this other slow one and so run more than the 400-meter lap. Now, the Kenyans have decided and said, we cannot import weather. Uganda beats us on that. The soils, Uganda is better. They have good soils, but not adequate enough to produce all that they need. Now, there are Kenyan farmers who have come into Uganda and leased land because we can't make the standard. So they are trying to help us because they need us to produce sufficient food for themselves. So when you go to eastern Uganda, you're going to find some of the farms, Ugandans are actually working on farms which they have leased to the Kenyans. The Kenyans are doing the investment because for them they can manage the standards, they can bring in the inputs and a lot of things that are running that industry now. We need to be thinking better to say we're talking about local content. Is a Ugandan chicken a Ugandan chicken? Because what we have noticed, the feeds are coming in from abroad, Netherlands. And yet we have maize here, chachu, I hear all sorts of complaints. But because of aflatoxin, Ugandan maize cannot get into chicken feeds and you'll get a good chicken. So people are importing feeds. People are importing some day-old chicks from Kenya and all sorts of things. So when is Uganda able to really put up a product and say, this is my product? Now, this is a part of the global value chains. We need to say, can we increase our space? Can we at least say all the feeds for poultry, for livestock, will be made in Uganda, and they will meet the standard. That area we have not gone there. We were only providing water and pasture for cows and a few other things, but now people are moving into eating pork, people are moving into eating poultry, and these do not roam around like cows. So we need to say, how do we plan better? And for me, it's not about policies. People will tell you there is a policy. No. A lot of things we do in the world are just about strategy.
So we have got a poor strategy?
That is if we have any. I've seen government strategies that have expired. A 5-year strategy began in 2013, 5 years, so it ended in 2018. This is 2022. There is no replacement.
Does the strategy expire?
Yes, of course. You have to revise it, because just like I'm moving from here, I will be going to my next destination. But my strategy is, I'm going through this road. If I find the road blocked because the president has a function there, I change my strategy. Okay. So strategies are usually 5 years to capture new emerging things, but also to allow you to build on the successes you have made. Now, Uganda's strategies expire, and then people say, it expired, let's begin another one. Now, was that one useful? If we now have a 3-4 year window when we're operating without a strategy, I begin to wonder whether the other strategy was even necessary, or whether you know the importance of having a strategy. So these are some of the things we are saying, and the strategy must not be high-level statements. Those may be in the policy.
I was coming to that.
We want to increase productivity. That you can state in your policy. You can state in your vision 2040. The strategy must go down and say, how do I increase productivity? What is the minimum acreage that a farmer of coffee has? Now, how do I help this farmer to increase if I want 20 million bags, as they are saying? You can only get that not by increasing the number of trees only, because there are farmers who cannot increase the number of trees because their land is limited. So you must find them a better type of coffee, which instead of producing 1 bag, produces 5 bags. How do you do that? You must get back into the research. And as I was saying, this is where now you invite the Germans and say, you guys, the profits you made, can we come and apply them upstream? I need to train scientists, I need to do this kind of research, I need to check about coffee diseases and all sorts of things. So that becomes your strategy of the people you partner with and to what end. And then you will be happy to say, well, the Germans took money out of there, but they contributed towards finding a type of coffee or a type of maize that is more resistant to the diseases here, that's more resistant to drought, that is faster maturing. These are things we are grappling with under the National Agricultural Research Organization.
From what you're saying, I'm seeing as if it's now on how to spend, as if we tend not to want to spend onto something, because if it's to invite about the Germans here to come in, that means we're going to incur a cost.
Yeah, exactly that I'm saying. It's along the entire value chain. The Germans and the Italians have invested heavily towards the consumer side. But we're saying, how do we encourage them also to invest in the production side? We are a poor country. We can't find all the money. But we also have the technology, the labs and many other things. So it's a question of the strategy, and then we find the money to invest in this strategy.
All right, thank you so much. And how does cross-border trade in agriculture produce, improve to Uganda's GDP?
It will certainly improve if you can address these issues we're talking about, because the borders are there. They can be closed politically, which also, like the Rwanda border was closed. But we're saying, can we ask the politicians to solve that? And they always will. You see the war, the pending war in Russia and Ukraine. It's about who should throw the first stone, if any stone should be thrown. Behind that is trade. So you must make sure your neighbors are ready to continue receiving your products. That is a political conversation to make them look at the bigger picture. But also when the borders are open, can you put out there the best that is internationally acceptable at the right times and in the right quantities? Every time I see cows that are being moved in Uganda, the way they tie them, the way they harass them on those trucks, I'm like, should I really continue eating meat? If I can find imported meat, I will eat it.
How should we tie it on a truck?
No, you're supposed to, exactly, that's not the way you move a cow.
Then how should we?
Now, we are supposed to be having abattoirs right at the places where the cows are produced, so that we move meat and not cows. Now, if you move a cow, you should have a holding ground, that the cows that came last week will be slaughtered 2 weeks after. They first stay and recompose themselves, because that travel really, doctors will tell you, raised a lot of tension and acids in the body, which are going to end up in the human body. So you want them to first calm down and cool down. There was a very big cattle holding ground at the airport. And I remember one minister going there and saying, why don't we sell this plot here and build the malls? I said, no, we are importing cows, and when they come here, we want first to watch them for 3 months. That's why this place is exactly next to the airport. They land at the airport, hold them there, to see whether they can adapt to our environment and what other diseases they may have come with, before you spread them out into Luwero, Nakasongola, and then it will be very hard to trust the disease. Kind of tracking. So if we do not follow the science and the business, then we're going to have a problem benefiting from cross-border trade.
Okay, and is Uganda economically in a strong position?
Yes and no. As we've said, safety in numbers.
Okay.
Once you're trading a product that has a global value chain, you've got to join that global value chain. If you're selling goods to the Kenyans, go and find out what do the Kenyans want, how do they want it, but also build partnerships. That if Kenya is going to say, I don't want Ugandan products here anymore, there will be a constituency of Kenyans who are part of us, who rise up against their government and say, no, you guys, we cannot do without Ugandan meat because it has this flavor, it has this taste, and that is how we survive. There will be an outlet in Kenya who will fight for us. I remember when we banned fish exports, Europe banned fish exports from Uganda in the late 90s because we were poisoning the fish. The demand went so high that we could not have enough nets. We decided to poison the fish. And we published it, and the Europeans banned fish exports from Uganda. But because they did not have an alternative, they came here and invested heavily to help us clean up. Because they could not just say, abandon the fish. Now, these are the partnerships you want to have, that when we have a problem, even when the other partners say, don't bring your product, there will be a constituency within their own selves who will say, but we can't just stop there. Can we help them meet the necessary requirements? So I think Uganda needs to know that we are part of the global system. We cannot run out from that fact. We need to continue engaging our trading partners to see how do we resolve the differences along the entire value chain. But we cannot just sit here unilateral and say, if I don't get this price for coffee, I am not selling. Forget it. If you don't buy my fish, get lost. Where do you sell it?
Forget about the product.
I think these are kind of things we need to do. We have been doing well with the flower exports, but what do? Just flower cuttings. The flowers must grow in Europe, but they cannot germinate and reach a certain level in Europe. The conditions will be too high for them to use those greenhouses. And for us here, it is easy. So they partner and say, you grow the flowers, let's cut off and go and graft from Europe. But that means you must have good refrigeration and good faster movement, airplanes, not trains, not ships, to get them the other side before they dry so that they can be grafted. Now, we negotiated well with the Netherlands people. They came and invested here, and it was very good business. It's still good business. We would want to nurture those kinds of sentiments. So we have good lessons to learn from.
Okay. Can I take that for a no? You said a no and yes. So what is a yes that is making us, shine and we have a position?
I think the yes is we have these unique weather and climate and soil and other conditions that others do not have. But we cannot just sit by and say, well, I'm the only one here. No, they need you, you need them. So the earlier we do these partnerships, the better. And these are the conversations we really want to have with our development partners. Now that they have stopped being called donors and they are being called development partners, can we be partners on development? We may have our own differences out here on how we handle our children, our girl child, are they back in school when they are pregnant? That's a conversation we can have. But it should not distort the big picture of how do we develop together as partners while we sort out those girls who should be coming back to school. But you find somebody saying, unless the girls go back to school, I'm cutting aid. No, that aid you're cutting was actually looking at a value chain that benefits the parents and those same girls in their livelihood. So let's not let one small thing undermine the bigger picture. Okay. That's the yes and the no.
Okay.
Kasavu Kanyama, as we call it.
Thank you so much. And as we conclude on this one, to me, I have observed, and it's also a public concern, that we lack something that defines us. I don't know what you have to say about that. You could tell us. Is there anything that defines Uganda towards an agriculture? Uganda is known for this. Do we have that? And in case there isn't, what do you wish that we could have to define us internationally or across the globe?
I think, as you've rightfully put it, it's what we talked about, branding.
Branding.
What is Uganda's niche? What is Uganda's...
Away from the Pearl of Africa.
Yes, exactly. Because as I said, people take cappuccino, people take Starbucks. I take KFC. I'm not eating chicken. I'm taking KFC.
What do you take?
It's going to be chicken, but it's KFC. So don't bring me this other chicken and force me to eat. That's why I walk into KFC and pay the price streetwise too is the price of an entire chicken. A local chicken. This is not to say I don't eat a local chicken. There are moments when I want the local chicken. So the branding of Uganda should not be, because we are more diverse, we have a lot of things. So in the oil sector, what are we branding ourselves like? When it comes to fruits, what are we branding ourselves like? When it comes to tourism, what brand are we putting out there? So we need to say, what are our core products? The things that are going to make us money. And how do we brand ourselves? And this business of having 18 commodities in agriculture, some are for food for us. Don't bother branding those ones. The potatoes we will always eat, the cassava we will always eat, and the maize. Rolex. Rolex is not a Ugandan product. It's just made here. The wheat comes in from Russia, who is the biggest producer of wheat. The eggs, as I've said, are maybe only 20% Uganda.
So we should not call it Ugandan Rolex?
It's just the naming, but the value. In that Rolex, every time you eat it at 2,000, you may find 1,600 has gone back abroad. Because the cooking oil is abroad, the egg is largely out there, the wheat is out there. So what is Ugandan apart from the charcoal and the small boy who made it? So how do you brand yourself to tap value and keep it? And we have lots of opportunities. So let's develop these value chains, and each value chain will have its own brand.
Okay, let us conclude. I'm still pinning you on this one. What do you suggest from what you have observed? What are you suggesting towards our branding? At least what are those major three producers or commodities that make us shine?
I think even because the commodities would be many depending on where we go. I've said gold. Gold, you can't brand yourself as gold. But that is giving us about 43 or 40% of our foreign exchange revenues.
Okay.
But we cannot brand ourselves around that. We could. That we refine it up to 99.9% and then stamp it Ugandan gold. So wherever it goes, it will be Ugandan gold and everybody will know it. That one you can leverage. Fish, what is unique about our fish? I think the best way we want to... Fish more. But also the other fish is also good. You can't find it in this market. Okay. Fish is very expensive. So the whole fish, the more and the rest, so you may brand different things. But I think the main thing you really want to brand yourself as is, we are a quality, knowledge-driven economy. That whatever you touch...
Quality, knowledge-driven economy.
Yes, whatever you touch is going to be first class. You want to fly our planes? First class. You want to come to our schools? First class. And what brings you that quality is the knowledge you invest in. So let's be scientifically driven, knowledge driven, to make the quality and brand ourselves as a quality country, whatever you want to touch. In Uganda, if you want quality of anything, just come home and we'll serve you the quality.
Okay, thank you so much for your time.
It's been a pleasure.
For honoring our invitation. And we were discussing greatly on how to improve our agro producers, and more so looking out for how coffee is being effectively improving our standards here in the country. We take a break. Jerome Posonko coming up on your screen with Business and Sport. Bye for now.